Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you for finding time to be part of this show. Now, the relationship between Washington and Nairobi under the Ruto administration and Donald Trump has continued to deteriorate ever since Trump took over power as the US president. This has compelled William Ruto to seek other alliances from the Eastern superpower. And I remember sometimes back, Ruto sought the closest ties with China, and he endorsed the New World Order, something that did not augur well with the US. As a result, the US has continued to either directly or indirectly warn the government of Kenya. This has really elicited a debate. There are people who say that William Ruto must understand that Kenya is autonomous. Kenya exercises some autonomy, and they can look for allies all over the world. No one should compel us or try to dictate who our friends are. But others are also saying that Ruto risks losing quite a lot because he needs to really juxtapose which side of the bread is buttered best. We all understand that under the Joe Biden administration, Ruto was the blue-eyed boy. In fact, they had really propelled Ruto to a level where Ruto felt like he was more than just an African president. He stood tall compared to other presidents. Now we've seen US warn President Ruto that Kenya risks losing this title that they were given a non-NATO ally to the USA, something that Ruto was given as a result of their closeness with Joe Biden. And of course, we had really predicted that it was not going to be business as usual after the Democrats lost to the Republicans in the USA. Now, today, the news that is we're getting is that Donald Trump has made statements that are only tantamount to the effect that he's going to stop or reduce military aid that is coming to the country. You know that as a country, we get a lot of military aid from Britain, from USA, and so Trump is saying that he has to prioritize his country first rather than looking at these African countries and trying to help, protect the borders from the outlawed sects like, Al-Shabaab, the terrorists. And here's what Trump was saying that has really scared State House Nairobi.
Together with many of you in the room, we've brought back the fundamental principle that defending the homeland is the military's first and most important priority. That's what it is. Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms. But we are under invasion from within. We're stopping it very quickly. After spending trillions of dollars defending the borders of foreign countries, with your help, we're defending the borders of our country from now on. We're not going to let this happen. Biden let people come in from prisons, mental institutions, drug dealers, murderers. We had 11,488 murderers allowed into our country by this guy who had no clue. He had no clue. He shouldn't have been there in the first place, but he had no clue. The people that ran the office, the White House, were people that surrounded him, radical left lunatics that are brilliant people, but dumb as hell when it came to policy and common sense.
Kindly subscribe to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Click the notification bell after subscribing. Don't go without liking and sharing our videos. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to draw some similarities and differences between Trump and William Ruto. One thing that we will all agree is that very many Kenyans have really beseeched Ruto to prioritize our interest first. Whenever we elect a government in place, we expect that government to embrace democracy, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, so that your people come first. Look at what Traore is doing in Burkina Faso. I hope I got the name right, the president of Burkina Faso. He prioritizes the interest of his people first. The other day, if you look at Museveni, of course, has got a lot of, questionable, characters and things that don't people like. But when the US came up with this idea of the Western, or trying to, the Western powers wanted to impose the LGBTQ on us, he refused. He said marriage between same gender is outlawed. In fact, he signed that bill that led to the World Bank curtailing some of the projects that they were sponsoring in Uganda. And Museveni said, so be it. Our culture is our culture, and we prioritize our people first. Now, when Donald Trump says that it's no longer going to be business as usual, and is going to take a paradigm shift from Joe Biden, who used to send maybe military aid to Africa and exposing their security, because Trump says they are exposed to threats from within. And so they are going to ensure that the very military power or the police that they have will prioritize protecting their people first before thinking of Africa. In a way, I will agree with Trump, and I will tell you why. William Ruto, immediately he ascended to power, he decided to lift the ban on GMO, genetically modified organisms, that that his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta had placed a ban on. And when you look at the debate around GMO, there was lack of sufficient discussion to understand, because Uhuru knew why GMO was not fully allowed in the country. The same to Kibaki. So William Ruto decided to do that, and very many people think that it was because of pressure and an agreement that he had signed before he ascended to power with the Western machinations. Then came the LGBTQ, same-sex relationship. Ruto had ascended to power under the church platform, the religious platform, and he was afraid of coming out openly to embrace this. So what did Kenya do? Through the apex court, the Supreme Court, they ruled that the LGBTQ community has got freedom of association. That means you cannot hold Ruto accountable that you're the one who allowed the LGBTQ. But when it has been passed by the courts, then you will see them walking around, hugging each other. There's nothing you can do because they have their rights. And simply, Kenya embraced indirectly the LGBTQ. Then came the foreign aid. We took our policemen to Haiti. Ruto keeps on saying that Haiti is part of the world, but it's a place that is very far from us. And people wonder why he had to take the front line in sending our policemen, when back at home there was a lot of insecurity. In other words, people feel that Ruto does and did not prioritize our interest as a country, that our security was not his priority. So when you look at what Trump is doing, many will agree with him, because as a president, you put your country's interest first before you look at others. Now, William Ruto, most likely from that speech, in the statement that was given by Donald Trump, it only means that US might consider reducing at a very considerable level the military aid that they give to the country. I think the aid comes in terms of training, in terms of money that they allocate to trying to, protect the borders, money that comes with it, the military artillery and all that. And Trump is saying that they're going to reduce or completely stop that. And many experts will tell you that maybe this is a very sweet revenge for Ruto, who is trying to engage with the Eastern allies like China and Korea and all that. But what is likely? What is the likely implication to William Ruto himself? Because we all know that Ruto was the darling of the USA. At some point, the former US President Joe Biden used to call out William Ruto in a UN summit and praising him, making Ruto feel like he was on top of the world. Listen to Joe Biden.
The United Nations must continue to preserve peace, prevent conflict, and alleviate human suffering. And we embrace nations stepping up to lead in new ways and to seek new breakthroughs on hard issues. For example, on Haiti, the Caribbean community is facilitating a dialogue among Haitian society. I thank President Ruto of Kenya. I thank him for his willingness to serve as the lead nation of a UN-backed security support mission. I call on the Security Council to authorize this mission now. The people of Haiti cannot wait much longer.
So William Ruto is going to lose that prestige. You know, many African countries feel that when you are the darling of the US and you're the apple of an eye to those, Western powers, then you are like you're in paradise. They are not proud to be Africans. What they want is they want to endear themselves to the Western nation, maybe because some of them have been supported to power by the same forces. Like we know that the former US ambassador to the country, Meg Whitman, aided Ruto's victory, and so he had no choice but to align themselves to the USA. So William Ruto is going to lose that prestige because Donald Trump does not entertain such kind of engagement that Ruto had with Joe Biden. And you see, the prestige that Ruto had almost made him the overall African president. You remember he was given that opportunity to host to be the first African president to host the African Climate Summit. Joe Biden really used to support him. Once he loses that clout, he used to somehow, it comes indirectly. Once you feel that you are the apple of an eye to the US government, then you feel like you are the president of the presidents. You intimidate them. That is no longer going to be there. It ends. You also intimidate the opposition in the country because they say US is the one that selects and elect our presidents. Under their leadership and patronage and dictatorship, they kind of dictate who is to be elected. They protect. That is why Meg Whitman had the audacity to tell us that the contested 2022 presidential election was the freest in the country because she was in charge. For the very first time, a diplomat was in Bomas where verification and tallying of votes was taking place. In broad daylight, we wonder whether we are an independent country. So once William Ruto loses that, even the opposition will be very happy. Remember the other day, Gachagua was in the US, telling William Ruto that I'm here to report you about your relationship with the groups like the RFS, the Rapid Support, forces in Sudan. He even accused William Ruto of meeting the Al-Shabaab gang and the Al-Shabaab leadership in Mandera. So the opposition will be very happy because they understand that William Ruto has lost their cordial relationship with the USA. Now, the worst one and the most painful to William Ruto is if things remain the way they are, then Donald Trump, has showed that he's not really interested in interfering with our affairs. And so they can take a backseat in the 2027 elections. They might not support William Ruto. And you know that that is not going to be very easy for Ruto when he faces a formidable force from a united opposition. That is if and when the opposition is going to remain united. Without the aid of the USA, it might not be very easy. Ask Raila Amolo Odinga, who is now in bed with William Ruto. He will tell you that he has always been denied the leadership and the victory for like 4 successive elections. And he has always pointed an accusing finger to the USA. So if William Ruto loses that, then he's going to face an opposition and he has to deal with them alone, because you look at countries like China and Korea, they are not really interested. They don't interfere with our internal affairs like elections. So if William Ruto was propelled to power by the US forces, the US powers, and now he's going in the next election without that force, he has to face the country and tell them what he has done in an environment where Ruto must go and one term has filled the air, then it's going to be news that is not palatable to him. So, ladies and gentlemen, from what Trump has said, I know very many people, the opposition is going to talk about it, but this really scares William Ruto. And I know they might contact the US Embassy just to clarify so that they can really know what this means. But Trump seems to be a no-nonsense president. He does not entertain what Joe Biden used to entertain. I remember when William Ruto was invited for an official visit to the USA, Joe Biden allowed Ruto to have a taste of his seat in White House, the presidential seat. And Ruto was feeling on top of the world. That is the kind of joke that Trump wants to completely eradicate, because it's a joke. I hope William Ruto is going to learn that he needs to prioritize the security and the culture of our country before he engages in trying to embrace the culture from outside, before he sends our security and our military and our policemen to another country. He needs to ensure that we are safe back at home. I don't know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, but that is not a very good news to William Samoei Ruto.